Can somebody please tell me where the past 5 years have gone? It was 5 years ago that I was in Malaga driving the then new Ford Puma. It was one of my last car launches before all the flights were cancelled and toilet paper became rarer than a Ferrari on this channel. But I liked the Puma. It wasn't another humdrum small SUV like the Renault Captur, because it actually drove really well. It was, on the face of it, just a jacked up Fiesta, which was bold, given that it would later kill off the Fiesta. And it managed to do all of that while not being a rusty two-door coupe from the late 1990s, much to the annoyance of everyone on the internet. There's a theme here with Fords, isn't there? The Puma went on to become the UK's best-selling car for a couple of years, and in 2024 it was updated to look like this. So you got these new daytime running light signatures, you got a matrix LED headlight option, you've got a redesigned interior, and the hilarious oversteering handbrake turning Puma ST was castrated down to just be a 1 litre with an automatic gearbox and less power than before. But unsurprisingly, the price of the Puma has been whatever the opposite of castrated is. Bollocked. It's now a 26.5 grand car for an entry-level titanium model. If you want an ST line, it's about a grand and a bit more. An ST line X like this one, which has all the features you really need, including a height adjustable passenger seat, 30 grand. But obviously this is a press car. It's got some options on it, £35,000. And yes, now there's an electric Puma as well. That's 30 grand, but it can only do about 200 miles. So I don't know who's going to be buying that. But let's find out if this updated petrol Puma is any good. It's sunny. It's finally sunny and warm. It's too warm for the stupid coat. We're going under here first because the other thing that's happened in the past 5 years is growing concern about Ford's 1 litre EcoBoost engine. That's the only engine you can actually get in the Puma now, really. But you don't need to worry, because this is the mild hybrid version, which doesn't have the horrible wet belt situation that the normal non-mild hybrid version does. Now, that mild hybrid thing was actually first introduced on the Puma, at least in Ford's range, and it gives you an extra 50 Newton meters of torque when you put your foot down. You can't really feel it. It's there to reduce fuel economy and emissions. Don't think it's a hybrid, it's just a normal petrol engine. But hey, it's pretty good. 125 horsepower, you can get it with a manual or a 7-speed auto. Then there's a more powerful 155 horsepower version, and the ST, well, 1 litre with 160 horsepower, 0 to 60 of 7 boring seconds, is not as fast as it was before, nor does it have the really satisfying manual gear shift. The glory days are gone, I'm afraid. For the 2024 update, Ford rubbed some ground oysters into all of the digital stuff. So you've got an engorged 12-inch touchscreen and a 13-inch digital driver's display, which kind of nestles behind this semi-square steering wheel. And I think it's done so you can see through the steering wheel to see the dashboard. But if you're tall like me, I've had to put the steering wheel kind of up here, or I'd rather it was down there, just so I can see how fast I'm going, which is not ideal. But the infotainment screen, okay, it's got wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. It's nice, big, everything's easy to prod, which is handy because look, I'm going to turn off the speed limit warning. You press features, driver assistance, speed limit assist, speed warning, close, and now it won't bong at me when I go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit on a motorway, which is good. Now you've got a wireless charger that only appears in the ST Line X version. You've got USB-A and a USB-C there. You've got some cubbies here, which are all very useful. But yeah, as I mentioned at the intro, you only get a height adjustable passenger seat on the top spec ST Line X model. That's very old school Ford Fiesta, that, which is a bit annoying because there isn't much headroom when you've got the sunroof, and I keep bashing my head on the roof getting in and out, even with this seat as low as it will go, which it is currently. ST Line X also gets this B&O 10-speaker sound system, and Ford's just doing this "we'll throw a sound bar on top of the dashboard" thing at the moment, and it doesn't look very good. And this plastic is really horrible and hard, and it's a 35 grand car, so that's not good. The glove box is an okay size, though. You've got big door bins. Yeah, and actually it's been okay to live with as a family car. I'm going to show you the back seats though, because they're not as big as you think, and I've got young kids, and they've demonstrated their crampedness Backseat space for adults in the Ford Puma is tighter than the Allies' eventual victory in the Third Battle of Monte Cassino. It is not great, especially with the sunroof. I have got no headroom. I'm just touching glass with my head. My knees are jammed in there, but at least it's soft, and my feet do fit under there. But it's as cramped as being in the back of a Fiesta. And to be honest, my kids, even though my 4-year-old, who sits here, she's quite long for a 4-year-old, she's been able to just kick this constantly and has said, I don't have much space. And I'm now on booster seats, high back booster seats. So if you've got a child seat with a leg and a base, it's gonna be tight back here. But you've got some okay sized door bins, 2 USB-Cs and a 12-volt down here. But going back to my child whinge, with these booster seats in, the interior is so narrow that when you've clipped them into the ISOFIX points here, it's really hard to get to the seatbelt clip. So if your child seat uses the car seatbelt to hold your kids in, take it to the dealer and test it before you buy one of these, because I've found it almost impossible to clip the seatbelt in when using my child seats. And I've never had that on any car. Right, we're going to talk about sex appeal now, and I don't mean my jacket. I mean the benefits of buying the Bogo titanium Puma. I don't think many people are going to buy that car because these bits around the wheel arches are matte black plastic. It's kind of a rental car spec. It doesn't look very nice. However, those cars get small 17-inch wheels and normal suspension. Every other Puma you get is going to have lowered sports suspension, which, as we'll get onto in the driving bit, is pretty painful around town, to be honest. Now, you also get bigger wheels as you go up the range, which also doesn't help the ride. 18s on ST Line X, 19s on the ST, and a different style of 17s on the normal ST line. But this weighs 1.35 tons, which is quite light in this day and age. It's just over 4 meters long, so it is still a manageable car, a smanageable car. You can smanage it, you can smanage the heck out of it in terms of parking. And if you park it next to a Fiesta, it's only about that much taller. It's kind of a big visual trick to make you think it's a big butch SUV. Oh, they're all front wheel drive as well. Now, I know I shouldn't be shooting into the sun, but I'm not exactly David Cameron, or whatever that famous director's name is. The back end of the Puma has not really changed much. We have got the Ford badge with the white bits rather than silver, and you will notice there's a reversing camera, and you actually do get that on every single Puma, which is good. The electric boot lid is only on ST Line X, but it's no hardship to open a boot yourself, is it really? And then you've got what looks like an okay space with very little load lip up here. But it's only when you lift this and it stays there, you realise you've got a ton more space down here with the famous Megabox, which has got a little release at the bottom. So if you accidentally fill it with water, you can drain it out. Now, that could probably fit a tent. So you can put your tent or whatever under the floor and then still have your boot space up here for your sleeping bags and whatever. Or you can drop the boot floor all the way down. It's a really good system, and it's a really big boot. 456 litres on a car this size, that's right up there. And it's got a 12-volt socket as well. So much more practical than a Fiesta. They've used the height of the car well. It's a shame they've used the flimsy old Ford lightweight parcel shelf, which does that all the time, and it unclips. And even when it's clipped up and fully functioning, it somehow still rattles over bumps. And with the suspension on this car, that's most of the time. So what's the Ford Puma like to drive? Well, that 1-litre EcoBeast engine still feels rorty. It feels a little bit smoother than I remember it through this automatic gearbox. I think that might help a bit. It doesn't feel slow, it feels torquey, it feels punchy enough for real-world driving. And I did a whole bunch of motorway driving in this yesterday, and I've averaged 43.5 mpg, which isn't bad really for a small petrol engine. But the magic is still in the way this car drives. It's the steering and the way the chassis reacts to it. You turn it into a corner and the steering is kind of Ferrari fast, and then the rear axle follows a split second later, and it gives you this great sense of the car rolling into corners, a bit like an old school hot hatch. And if you lift off in the middle of a corner when you're going probably a bit faster than you should, you can get the back to step out. And it's got a manual handbrake. It is still a Yobbo Fiesta underneath. And I loved the last generations of the Fiesta that this is based on, and this has got some of that magic. Now, the downside of the fun handling is that around town, the ride is pretty shocking. It's not so bad once you're doing kind of 40 miles an hour, but it is constantly jiggling you and just letting loud noises come through into the cabin. and it's just a bit grating. And that's because you've got sports suspension on this ST Line X model. If you get a normal titanium model, you get normal suspension, much more comfortable, but then you don't get half the toys, which is a bit annoying. So it's still firm, it's just whether you and your family can put up with that in exchange for you laughing your head off in the corners. It's a bit of a balance. Other little niggles, there's not much room to rest your elbow up there, and also the steering wheel does slightly block my view of the dials. I've had to have it a bit higher than I would otherwise naturally have it. Another ergonomic foible I've noticed while driving it is I've only got about 1 inch of headroom with the sunroof on this one, and I've banged my head into this loads. It's got loads of marks from my scalp on it, and when I was resting my sunglasses on my head yesterday, I was constantly bashing the ceiling. That is not good in a car that's meant to be a tall SUV. It's actually a bit cramped in here if you're a tall person. On a country road, there's still just something in its DNA that is cheeky, and that's what I like about this. Yes, it can do the motorway stuff okay, the cabin is reasonably refined, and once you get used to the suspension, it's all right, but it's just when you get to a bumpy B road with some corners on it, you're reminded that cars didn't all used to handle in that boring, flat, lifeless way, and perhaps the Puma was the last of its kind to put a smile on your face, certainly in this segment, B segment SUVs. Now I have to say, this is the first time I've driven a Ford with the 7-speed dual clutch and this 1-litre engine, and it's actually okay most of the time. It's a little bit jerky around town, and when you're parallel parking, they can't quite speak to each other properly, but most of the time, doing normal driving, they're actually quite a good match. There aren't any paddles to override it or anything sensible like that, but yeah, it just works. It's a good, fun car. Let's go back to me for a conclusion. So, is the Puma still worth looking at 5 years on? Well, if you want a small SUV that's fun to drive, then absolutely, it's still at the top of its game. And if you want a car that's only really for 2 of you, then yeah, it's spacious enough and it's got a big boot. The engine choices are okay as well. It's just, if you want to use it as a family car, I can't really recommend it because there aren't much roomier rivals, things like the Capture and the other things that I've forgotten about. But this is really cramped in the back, even for children, which is a bit of a shame. We also should point out it's one of those cars that inflation has really caught up with. 35 grand for this one is bananas. Admittedly, it's got £1,000 worth of sunroof, which just destroys headroom, so I wouldn't bother with that. And it's got 800 quid of matrix LED headlights as well, which I don't think you really need, frankly. On a lease deal, you can get one of these for about 250 quid a month, which seems about right. That's all your streaming services, Sky Sports and everything combined. And yeah, if it's 1 or 2 of you and you want a practical small runaround, it's a great thing. But it is just starting to feel its age in terms of the plastics and things like that. But anyway, hopefully this has been helpful. Please hit like if you've liked it, subscribe, go down to the comments, trying to remember where this is built. It's going to be Belgium or Germany or somewhere, isn't it? It's designed in Belgium and Germany. Leave me the Flemish actually, please, for lift off oversteer, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching, goodbye. Gonna get run over by a cyclist.